Ahoy! And welcome to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. The Boating Hour brings you the latest and greatest essential information about everything that sails, floats, or motors upon the high seas of Southern California. From landlubbers to old salts, there'll be something for everyone. So climb aboard and get ready to sail with Captain Rick.
Ahoy out there, and welcome to the Boating Hour. I'm Captain Rick, and I want to thank you for joining us here on AM 870. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m., and please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com. And now, all over social media on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks to our sponsor for our show today, for a healthy gut, the best probiotic on the market, Livia One Probiotics, natural, organic, and allergen-free. Well, I hope everybody had a happy new year. There's all kinds of great stuff coming up this year. You know, we just heard that the Space Force will be the featured branch at the Armed Service Parade in Torrance in May. So we're going to talk about that. And I have a guest in here in the studio today. Martin, thanks for joining the Boating Hour in studio, the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks for coming in.
Well, Rick, thanks for having me today.
I've had so many great guests, Martin. I know you've been cruising around, for the Christmas show. I had Bart Hall, and I'll be at
awesome.
Bart Hall is amazing. It's been going on since after the war. The original shows were the Fred Hall shows, and his son has taken over. And they used to be the outdoor camping and boating shows, and now it's the Fred Hall and now the Bart Hall shows. So I'll be there. So Bart Hall has got the Long Beach show coming up in January. And then he's got a show in San Diego in February. The first week of March is the All Boat Show in Pomona. So I'll be talking a lot about that, and Bart will probably come back on the show. And I'll be there. I'll be there in the various booths that are my friends, the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and walking around, and some of the NRA groups. So I'll be running around the Bart Hall. So I hope you join me.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. I wouldn't want to miss it.
Yeah, and I'll give you a guest pass. Well, let's talk briefly about you. So you had a great vacation in the islands. Tell us about where you went.
Oh, yeah, that one. Oh, boy. Yeah, that's a big one. I basically got dragged into a sailing trip. Friend from Europe, longtime friend of mine. We go back many, many years. Called me from Germany early last year and said, hey, you want to join me for a sailing trip for a week of sailing around the Adriatic Sea in Croatia? And
wow.
I had to lean back and say, well, you know what? I really got to think about that one. Yes, definitely. I do want to. And so off we went, and that was last week of September into actually I tagged up a week of more vacation on it after that, but it was fantastic.
God, what is that like? It's I've seen photographs. I've never been there, and it's some of the most beautiful photographs of in the world from the photographs I've seen. What was that like being in that area?
Well, I've never been to that portion of the planet before, so I didn't know what to expect. So driving there through the mountains, ending up on the Adriatic Sea, it's very rough terrain. If you go from the water inland, there's beach is not very sandy. There's some patches that have a bit of sand, but it's all very rocky, and very immediately, pretty much after the beach, you have mountains and hill rising with bits and pieces of rock sticking out. So it's not lush and green. It's rocky. It's rough terrain. But the water is beautiful. It's got this nice blue greenish hue to it. It's nice and warm. It's fantastic.
Well, is it a safe part of the world?
Definitely.
Wow.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Maybe I'll take a foray and a little trip over there, and I might do the same.
I'd recommend it.
It's wonderful. Maybe you should do a photo exhibit and put it in a museum. Speaking of museums, my New Year's show last week, we had the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum come on. We barely scratched the surface, so they're going to come on again. But there's a wonderful place in Santa Barbara, and they have all kinds of guests. The way I found him is that I had a book author on, and he was making a presentation, so I went up to see his presentation up there. And they got all kinds of different groups in the community has put this thing together. So we're going to have him on again. But that was my show last week. I've had since you've been on, and this is your, you've been on before last year sometime. I think it's been a whole year. Since you've been on, I've had some amazing guests. I featured the Coast Guard Auxiliary all month of May because they were the featured branch in the Torrance Armed Service Parade. This year it's going to be the Space Force, of course, which...
That's exciting.
Yeah, it evolved out of the, of course, the Air Force, and the Air Force evolved out of the Army Air Corps. So that's going to be real exciting to see the very first Space Force, and their logo looks like Star Trek.
Oh yeah, I saw it. They did a nice job. It looks pretty cool. I like it.
Or I think it's the other way around. I think Space Force was maybe something on the drawing board, and the Star Trek pulled it from from the Air Force when they were talking about a Space Force. I don't know. I don't have the story. I'll have to get somebody on to talk about that. So the Santa Barbara Museum was the guest, and they're going to come back on. We're going to talk about that. Are you looking forward to the Olympics? We're going to have the Olympics in the 28th, the Los Angeles. We're going to have all the sailing out there in Long Beach, between Long Beach and San Pedro. So in 28, are you looking forward to that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's I'm probably going to take quite a bit of time off to just enjoy it. But it's a little bit till then, but it'll be here before we know it, and I can't wait to see what improvements they're going to do and what the competitions will be like.
It really is exciting, and of course, I've always told the story when I went on a starboat, which was for 100 years. It was the oldest competition. The starboats are no longer in the Olympics, and they've got some co-ed boats, and they've got different kinds of boats. I think the foiling boat might be an exhibition in 28. That's what I heard.
Oh, yeah. A buddy of mine just bought one. He's waiting to receive it. And I must say about the starboard thing, for me it was like a disruption in the force when it came out. But
yeah. Well, I don't understand the foiling boats. It seems like you're flying in the air. How do they get the momentum? Do you understand how that works? And how do they tack?
It's kind of a wing underwater. I've yet got to sail one, but it's like an airfoil, except it's a hydrofoil underwater, and that creates lift and lifts the boat out of the water, thereby reduces drag and ends up going as fast as you wouldn't have before in a conventional boat. So I can't wait to try one out, and probably going to do a trip earlier this spring to see my buddy who bought one and try it out in person, and I'll let you know how it goes after.
Yeah, that would be amazing. The Santa Monica Windjammers Yacht Club featured a weekend with a lot of the young kids, and they were on I forgot what they called them, the Terras, I think. And they had these young kids. They were as little as 7, 8, and 9 years old, and then, of course, the teenagers. And these little kids were getting up in the air, and it was interesting. And a couple of them were tacking in the air. But I just can't. I don't think I could translate what little skills I have in sailing to be able to do that. Are they using the same kind of sails, or are the sails different? Do you know?
I'm to be honest, I'm not quite sure. But ultimately, it's probably still some sort of sail-shaped thing. What they do, whether they're cut differently, I couldn't tell. But ultimately, sailmakers still got to make a living, so I suppose they figure out how to tend to it.
Well, I tell you, I've got to get somebody from the Los Angeles Yacht Club. They were my guests as well. Congratulations to their 2-year, the COVID Commodore that kept that club together. And she was on my show, and during that tenure, during her tenure, she grew the club. So there were a lot more people that came out, and congratulations to her.
Yeah, that's amazing. I hear the clubs get quite a bit of revival during that time.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because the world was locked down, and camping and sailing was through the roof. I had some boat brokers on, and they couldn't keep inventory. And as a matter of fact, when the world opened up, Bart Hall couldn't have his first show because the boat distributors and the manufacturers didn't have any inventory because they were sold out. And I understand if you're ordering one of the top-of-the-line Zodiacs, you've still got a year to 2 years for a wait. So boating kind of increased during that. So a lot of the guests that have come on have talked about that. I've had a lot of guests. I've had some fishermen. I had a guy that had a bait and tackle shop. My new friend Wayne, I got to go down and see him, and he's going to be back on the show. He talked about a lot of friends that he has. I had at the Thanksgiving show, I had Michael Koslow, who's part of Westlake Yacht Club. You ever been up to Westlake, Martin?
Oh, it's been a while.
Okay, Westlake is very interesting because I'm not a lake sailor, and it's a little bit different because it seems like the wind doesn't go. The wind comes from above you and comes down.
Yeah, I grew up sailing on a lake as a kid.
Oh, you did?
That's where I learned to sail. And the problem with wind on lakes, like you said, is very rarely, or there's many lakes where the wind seems to come from all directions, or where you could have a head-on collisions with two boats going upwind and both have starboard.
Yes, it's really confusing because in the ocean, you're dealing with a lot of factors. You're dealing with current. You're dealing with some of the waves, but you're dealing with kind of, the consistent wind, consistent current, and you can get into momentum, and of course it changes. But on a lake, I mean, it just swirls around you, and it's a whole different ballgame. Westlake, they don't allow anybody with outboard engines, so the only the power boats on there are all electric. So we're going to be talking to Duffy, and I've got an alliance with the new Duffy dealer in the Westlake, Ventura, and Oxnard. So,
sweet.
That's where I met Michael Koslow, and he's a member of Westlake Yacht Club, and he's a sailor, and he's running for Congress, so that's exciting. So hopefully if he makes it in Congress, we'll hear all about the things, the money that's going to go into the boating community. One of my exciting shows, I had Dave Ross on again from Delray Yacht Club, and he's in charge of the holiday parade this year, and I think he's also the president of the association. He'll be coming on talking next year as well. But talking about Marina Del Rey, did you hear about the tragic fire at the iconic yacht club, California Yacht Club? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, actually, I just heard about it last week, and I missed it when it originally happened. And I must say, I was stunned. I had so many good memories from that place. That was actually that yacht club where I first made friends when I came to the United States now nearly 20 years ago, and I was looking for an opportunity to crew on a boat, and that was at that club.
That was a fantastic club. I learned something. I was talking about California Yacht Club since they've been there since Marina opened. It's an actual beautiful facility, and they've got their racquetball courts, and they got
they got
slips.
A pool.
They got a pool. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they got an outside area where they sometimes have receptions and whatnot. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it was nice, and the building burned down, so it's going to take. So I was talking to somebody about that, and what happened is. The top floor burned down, and I think the fire went down, so the whole building is a loss. It's going to take about a year before they even get the permits to be able to start renovating. But, of course, the California Yacht Club was owned by the Hathaways, and they've sold since, and it's a lease with the county. So there's going to be a lot of hoops, but they're going to still go on their iconic Wednesday night races. Yeah, they're going to still go on, and they're able to meet in the outdoor patio areas, but the whole inside facility. But you know something? The members still have to pay their dues. And it's not one of the cheaper clubs. It was one of the fancier, nicer clubs.
It sure was. And, the building was quite iconic. And actually was the site of several movie scenes that happened there. So it was quite famous. And I was pretty surprised when I heard about the news and was pretty sad about it.
I haven't found out if any of the trophies and some of the stuff was saved. I mean, I might be a total loss, but they've got stuff. And I learned that they didn't start. The California Yacht Club didn't begin when Marina Del Rey opened. Apparently, it was a club that started maybe even as far as the 20s or the 30s. I'm going to have to get. I've had people.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I've had people come on from Cal Yacht Club on the show, but the origins go back at one point. At one point, the club was run down in the L.A., Long Beach, San Pedro area by the Coast Guard.
Oh, all right. Is that right?
Yeah, they took over because I guess they needed the dock facilities. And then when the marina was built, the Hathaway families, who's been here since the advent of the railroads, they moved the club, built the building, got a lease with the county, and that was the beginning of California Yacht Club in Marina del Rey. So, I really hope that they're able to put that together. But we've had a lot of great people. As a matter of fact, we had some juniors, and actually, Allie came on the show not too long ago, and she was one of the young female sailors. They have a whole group of young women. They were in their early years and even their teens, and now they're all in their adult years. Mm-hmm. Some of them with families, and they're still sailing. And some of them are national caliber sailors. Competing all over the country, so that was exciting. That came out of Cal Yacht Club, and I've done volunteered and taken courses there and volunteered for some stuff. So I really hope that happens. But we've had amazing guests. We're going to start covering the Sea Scouts.
The Sea Scouts, wow!
I had someone from the Sea Scouts, and I've learned a lot about the Sea Scout. Now I was in the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts before that,
right?
And I had gone sailing and learned with the Sea Scouts, but I barely remember them. But there's a whole organization that runs almost parallel to the Boy Scouts. It's considered scouting, and I'm going to follow them. But what they do is they have ships, and you're part of a ship, and that's your affiliation, and then you learn different Sea Scouts in different areas, focus on different things. It could be sailing, it could be maritime, it could be power boating, but the Sea Scouts is something. We had a great guest. They're going to come back on. I had John from Freedom Boats on. That was another great guest. He was a fantastic guest. I had him in the middle of December. And Freedom Boats, they teach you how to sail. They provide instructors if you want them. If you're qualified, you can get one of their boats in any of the harbors from San Diego. They're almost like a franchise, but they're in every harbor from San Diego to Santa Barbara, which is what I cover. And we're going to start getting stories from Freedom Boats. And if you don't want to have the expense of owning a boat, you go to some place like Freedom Boats. So he was a great show. That was the show.
And you have the variety. If you can go to all the marinas, you're not stuck with one. You can make as many weekend trips and just enjoy the logistics whenever you're on site.
One of my most exciting guests that I ever had was from Hawaii.
Oh, wow,
and
good.
He had bought he does salvage. The guy charters boats, and he's very active in some of the Hawaii activity in the boating community. But he bought a battleship to salvage, and of course, when you buy those, you have to have special permits. You have to take it apart and take the boat apart before you end up melting down the metal. So that was from Hawaii. But I told someone about that show, and I got introduced to a lobster fisherman. So he came on in October. Yutaka came on, and he's a lobster fisherman. So that was pretty exciting to have him. And I'm going to have somebody from Hawaii coming on. He's from one of the smaller islands. He's a DJ and a musician. He was on many of the cruise ships, but he grew up racing. He was once on a 90-foot old restored schooner, and he's going to talk about racing that and then some of the trips that you can do to Hawaii. So he's coming up. So one of the great things of the show, Martin, is I've had unbelievable guests. I've had all kinds of men and women. Another favorite guest of mine, I'm going to try to get this captain back. Captain Carolyn came on. I think it was last year. That was a while ago. Time flies. And she's the captain of the tall ships out in San Pedro. And they have the kids come out, and they're on these restored tall ships that look just like the ships of the era. And she was a college girl that had never been to a marina, never been on a boat. And she took a trip in college in her freshman year and decided this is what she wanted to do. So she volunteered, she learned.
That's amazing.
She's a 100-ton captain now, and everybody's working for her. So I'd really like to feature in some of the upcoming guests. I'd like to feature the tall ships because they have a lot of programs for the kids. And so I've got so many guests that came on. It's all so amazing. And, you came here to talk about your trip to Croatia, to the islands, barely scratched the surface. Martin, can I invite you back to come in studio next week?
We can talk more about it if you want, absolutely.
Okay, I promise I won't go off on a tangent on all the wonderful guests that I had. The show's grown, and we're now on social media, and my goal is to promote all the activities at the various clubs at the marinas, and I've got a new affiliation. I got a really exciting announcement to make. So Raycom Radios, right here, based they're a Los Angeles-based company. Actually, I think they're Paramount. But if you're on race committee or you're a regatta chair or event coordinator of any kind, land or sea, and if you need volunteers and helpers for your event, no matter how small or large, we can help. So all you got to do is call Captain Rick, whether land or sea, but especially if you're on race committee or you're a regatta chair. With our new sponsorship and alliance with Raycom, Captain Rick will come out and I'll supply the radio communications. They're two-way radios, and the radios that we have, we'll bring them out and give it to your race committee so you'll have communication because, the mobile phones are just not working out on the sea. So a lot of people do that. Ham radios, not everyone has their license. So the race committee, one of their biggest problems is to get people to volunteer to come out. And I will come out and be on Mark's set boat. I'll be on the race committee boat. I'll come out with my camera and take pictures. So I'll be at your awards presentation if you like. But most importantly, I'll supply the radios so your race committee can communicate and you can hear back at the news, back at the club, one of the biggest problems. So reliable two-way private communications with little to no drop or dead zones. So contact Captain Rick at theboatinghour.com for more information and for an appointment or to invite me up to one of your regattas. That's one of the things I like best about this show is the people that I meet. Martin, I'm meeting people from all over Southern California.
I bet, yeah. And I must say, I spend a lot of my weekends sitting on race committee boats. I used to chair a lot of races, and you name it, Rick. I mean, communication is important for the logistics of the race, and it can make or break the race committee's day. So very important stuff.
Yeah, so that's what I'll be doing. So it'll be exciting, and then we'll talk. And you're a radio guy, so I got to ask you a lot of questions about your history. So you're going to come. I can count on you to come in the studio next week?
Sure, absolutely, yeah, you bet.
That's fantastic because this show is supposed to be all about you, the Croatia trip, and I talked about some of the great guests, but we do have some really exciting guests coming up, so stay tuned. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today, and I hope you enjoyed our show. As always, we're so very fortunate, as I talked about all day today, to have such wonderful and exciting guests. And let's not forget the Coasties, protecting our waters, America's lifesavers and guardians of the sea. Be sure to go to our social media platforms. We're all over social media, YouTube, Instagram, Rumble, and Facebook. We need your support, so find us on social media and give us a like and subscribe to keep the program going. Remember, if you do it right and follow the guidelines and the safety precautions, there's no place like being out in the water in the fresh air and sunshine in beautiful, sunny Southern California, and that's what I like to do. I like to be out there in the fresh air and sunshine. And I didn't mention, Martin, the favorite thing I like about being a part of a sailing club or any club at all is the reciprocals, where
absolutely.
You have a home anywhere you go, in the state, in the nation, or even in the world. So
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Yeah, the reciprocals are one of my favorite parts. Well, here at the Boating Hour with Captain Rick, we cover everything that sails, motors, and floats from San Diego to Santa Barbara. Thanks for being with us today. Please be sure to join us next week and every Saturday at 4 p.m. on AM 870. A special thank you to the Starbucks in Marina del Rey. They hosted a public information and safety booth for the Coast Guard Auxiliary. They were there last Saturday, and we had the Coast Guard Auxiliary in uniform. It was absolutely wonderful, and I want to reach out to Starbucks and thank them in Marina del Rey. And that's where all the sailors, that's their pit stop before they get to their boat, is to go to the Starbucks in that shopping center. It's absolutely fantastic. Well, thanks to our sponsor for our show today, For a Healthy Gut, Livia One Probiotics. Don't forget to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com, and now, of course, all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, The Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Keep your emails coming. This is Captain Rick saying ahoy in fair winds to all.